here to talk about a little bit about wrestling, a little bit about the WWE, NXT, and a little AAA action. I didn't want to talk about this until we had more information, and when they made the announcement at WrestleMania, I really felt like that was it was an announcement. That's all that it really was. It was just an announcement. It was just a, hey, we're here. Hey, we've made this big acquisition, and we're now going to be running. Well, not running. He didn't say we're running anything. And as a matter of fact, I'll get into more specifics about how that's going to work moving forward. But they announced a partnership deal. They announced an acquisition. They announced that they were going to be working with AAA talent and working with AAA as a company. And when they made the announcement, there's Vikingo standing next to Triple H and the Lucha Brothers and everything that they got going on over there. There was some people that thought it was a little bit controversial to literally just put all of your Latino and Latina wrestlers together, considering they don't all have the same history, right? Because the AAA promotion is not the only major company in Mexico. CMLL is also down there, and a couple of those talents were not really AAA talents. They were actually CMLL competitors. Phoenix and Penta came up as one of the most obvious examples of that. So there was a little bit of controversy in the sense of, what does this mean for the wrestling scene? What does this mean for the companies and their lineage? And there's been some comparisons. Hey, be careful. Look what happened in the UK. And we'll talk a little bit about what that comparison is like. But first and foremost, we have to start at the beginning, right? We have to just really quickly just go through this because AAA has existed as a company for a long fucking time. I remember watching AAA as a kid because it would come on the Telemundo. It would come on the different varying Spanish networks that changed throughout New York in the history in the past. It was, of course, founded by Antonio Pena and the Pena family, who are still running the company to this day. Members of the family have been, it's been interchanged, but pretty much. AAA has been run by the same family for about 33 years. Right now, as it stands, so let's be clear, because again, this is another reason why I didn't want to mention anything until we had more information. So when people say WWE bought AAA, there was a lot of controversy amongst fans when they said, well, WWE didn't buy anything. TKO bought something. But no, because WWE this and whatever the case may be. So right now, as it's listed on the paperwork, the WWE is 51% owners of AAA. So they don't own all of it. They're not the only owners involved with the situation. There is 51% of the stake is with WWE, and then the other 49% is owned by the show company Philippe, which is run by the executive chairman Alberto Fiesa. We have the CEO and general manager of Dorian Roll. I have the Spanish names, damn it. Roldan. And Marcelo Pena is the president of AAA. I believe those were the people who were at the press conference or at the announcement at WrestleMania, which is a dope time to be announcing an acquisition of a company. WrestleMania, that's pretty fucking cool. So there was a company called Televisa. It's a Mexican telecommunications and broadcasting company, a major Latin American mass media corporation. It often presents itself as the largest producer of Spanish language content, and they housed AAA on their network and was the owner predominantly. From 1992 to about 1995, they had the Pena family come in and run the company, but they were predominantly the owners for those 3 years. In 1995, the Pena family stepped up and purchased the company from the network, and they have been the holders of that title as far as owning the company, the Pena and Roldania family, from 1995 to 2025. So that is a 30-year run as the owners and proprietors of Lucha Libre AAA up until now, where WWE Nick Khan is actually listed as one of the key people, president of WWE, which is helping with the production here of AAA. So the next question now becomes, how does this work for AAA? How does this work for WWE? And the simple answer is that WWE is putting its toe into the Mexican waters without actually having to do much, in all honesty. Triple H has made it quite clear they're not changing Triple A's presentation or how it plays into the historical context of Mexican luchador lure, right? They're one of the most important companies in the world, especially as it relates to Mexican wrestling and Lucha Libre style. So pretty much it's going to remain as is. They are what we would call the money marks. They are the financial backers. They are paying their way into claiming some sort of partnership, some sort of role, some sort of presence in the Mexico wrestling scene. Not unlike what they did with the UK scene when that started getting hot, and that started being, popping with Progress and ICW and so many others, Rev Pro. There was a lot of companies that exploded over there, and WWE got their hands on that as well. And that did not end well for the UK scene. So we will hold out the jury to see how that works with AAA. Now, I know a lot of people on the internet are also salty about the fact that WWE makes this announcement about purchasing AAA mere weeks after AEW announces that they're going to be doing a joint effort with CMLL and increasing their partnership that they've had pretty much since the inception of AEW. That's how Penta and Phoenix became an option on the table, not for nothing. I know they were doing TNA stuff, but let's be real. They were still top stars in Mexico, and AEW was looking for exclusivity with their contracts, and that's how that happened, was through those channels with CMLL. So the question now becomes here, will WWE be putting their fingers in the pot? Well, as of right now, the answer to that question is no. That's what we're learning now, that they're going to do their thing, and they're going to allow them to do that thing, and they're just going to have their input wherever they can, and we'll see what happens. What we do know for sure is that former TNA, now current, well, not now, he's been there for a few years now, WWE producer Jeremy Morash will be working in sync, so to speak, with the folks over at AAA. He'll be more of the liaison. I don't think they're going to give him any kind of veto power or anything like that. I think the Pena family and everybody's going to still run their company the way that they've always run it. But WWE will have controlling stake, which means, hey, everyone sleeps in the house, but there's only one person who owns the house, right? It's just one person whose name is on the lease. In this case, there's two names on the lease, but one's predominant and the other one's a co-lease. So it's, they've made it quite clear that that's going to be the situation, and that's fine. I don't think if Triple H didn't want that to be the situation, it wouldn't be the situation. You get what I'm saying? So I believe it was Latin Lover, who is not president. What was his role again? Dang it. It was right in front of me before. And now I don't have it anymore. But the creative team, for as far as the storylines and the booking, the administrative powers behind the scenes, everything seems to be staying exactly the way that it was. They're just going to be basically essentially funding it and doing their best to promote and get the names out there. Hence the reason for the Worlds Collide show, which is coming up June 7th. Worlds Collide. This is the second, technically, Worlds Collide show for AAA. WWE kind of borrowed the name for a little bit because originally the Worlds Collide show, right? Let me see it right here. When Worlds Collide. That was a joint effort show between AAA, obviously. They had WCW talent on the show. They had IWC on the show. They had ECW talent on the show. It really was a joint effort between several talents, and it truly was the worlds colliding. It really was. It was something special. It was something new. 1994, right before the big push of the Attitude Era. So, they weren't that many eyes outside of Mexico watching AAA. But they had this major card in 1994. Tag match, 6-man tag, 6-man tag, 2 out of 3 falls. And then the steel cage, they hot-shot it. It was all gimmick. As a matter of fact, I was going to tell Dave, Dave's not on it, he wanted to see a AAA match. And there's no better time than before Worlds Collide. And one of these matches, longest match on the card, 22 minutes, it was the 2 out of 3 falls. Lucha de Apuestas, Mask versus Hair. It was a tag team match. Octagon and El Hijo del Santo would put their masks on the line against La Pareja del Terror, Art Bar and Eddie Guerrero. And they had a classic matchup at Worlds Collide. I won't spoil the ending because I think that'll be our next watch along. I'll inform Dave when he comes back on the show. We'll do that match as the watch along. That is a classic matchup. I had everybody talking. Rey Mysterio, by the way, was on this card on the losing end. Fuerza Guerrera, Madonna's boyfriend, and Psychosis defeated Rey Mysterio Jr. and Harry Metal and Latin Lover in a 6-man tag in the second match of the evening. And so they're bringing this back. Like I said before, WWE had, I guess they had some sort of rights to the name because of WCW's interaction, and WCW, obviously they bought everything when it came to WCW. And they've done some Worlds Collide pay-per-views with NXT and NXT UK, and then they've done it with where all the brands met. So there was like Raw, SmackDown, NXT. So they've had some situations like that. This is the first time where the worlds will genuinely collide between WWE, NXT, and AAA. They will have a show preceding the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which is funny because this show is going to be in Inglewood, California, at the Kia Forum. That's going to be where Worlds collide. That's where that's going to be. And then Money in the Bank is going to be same night, right after, at 7, also in Inglewood, but it'll be in the Intuit Dome, which is the same place where they had the Netflix Raw, which was a really cool, that was a really cool venue. And I thought that was really fun to watch on TV, well, on my TV, but it was on Netflix. And that was really cool to see. So for a pay-per-view, I'm actually really into the idea of how that's going to work. By the way, the two venues, the Kia Forum, which is going to be housing When Worlds Collide at 3 p.m., and then they're going to have the Money in the Bank pay-per-view at 7 p.m., Eastern Time, I believe those were Eastern Time times. The two venues are only separated by 4 minutes if you're driving. If you're walking, it's a 25-minute walk if you're walking. It's several, but it's a straight shot up. It's a straight shot up. You really aren't going to be missing all that much. I wonder if there's public transportation. Let me see, 10 minutes. Yeah. It's one bus going straight down. 10 minutes. A 10-minute bus ride to the end of the venue. So if you're real hardcore and you don't mind walking around Inglewood for a little bit. By the way, I'm looking at it right now. Right next to the Kia Forum, there's an In-N-Out Burger. And right next to the Kia Forum is a Sizzler. I don't know if you need that. By the way, in between is SoFi Stadium, which is where they had WrestleMania 39. And there's a liquor store right there. So if anybody, You about to about to bust it down real quick. Get yourself something at the liquor store. Get yourself a full night of activities. So back to AAA, just to round this story up right here. There isn't a whole lot of movement as far as the AAA product as it is. What people really are worried about, and quite frankly, I think it's a founded worry, is that WWE at first was trying to get around these companies. They were trying to do an NXT Mexico, excuse me, just like they did NXT UK. They wanted to do an NXT Mexico, they wanted to do an NXT Japan, and they couldn't get past the politics of those companies because the countries themselves hold their companies to high regard, and they just don't want their culture to be erased by WWE. So WWE, I guess, eventually figured it out, and they couldn't do an NXT Japan, but they could do a working relationship with the company over there. And since they're not going to do it with New Japan, they do it with Pro Wrestling Noah. WWE can't go to do an NXT Mexico, so they have a working relationship with AAA. Don't think for 1 second their working relationship currently with TNA and with their WWE ID program on the Indies is not the same thing just here locally in the States. They being WWE, has promoted itself to be a global brand for so long that it's starting to become increasingly obvious that they truly want to become global. To have this company be bigger than it's ever been. You guys saw the documentary. You saw everything that McMahon went through to make the WWE a national powerhouse. Now they're turning it into a level of becoming a global powerhouse. And that's going to change a lot of things. It just is. And I don't think they're keeping the fans in mind for a lot of that change. I think they're of the understanding, as most major multi-billion-dollar companies do, that the consumer will just change with it. And they're offering you the opportunity to see the company in a different light. You don't like what we do here? That's fine. Check out the Mexican brand, or check out the Japan brand, or check out the UK brand, or I don't even know what's next, or Australia, the NXT Australia, or whatever the fuck they even, NXT India, NXT Saudi Arabia. It's possible. It's possible. NXT China. We don't know. NXT Egypt. Who fucking knows and who fucking cares at this point? They got money to burn, and they're gonna fucking do it. And you can either like it or not like it. That's fine. You don't have to support anybody, but it's a global takeover. And there's not a whole lot of people that are really going to be able to do much jack shit about it. The indie scene is just not strong enough for that. There's not enough unity. There's not enough people in the indie scene that know enough about the business to be a threat. Then you have your other major level companies, your AEWs, your TNAs, which TNA succumbed and they're now part of the problem. They're now part of the process. But AEW is trying to fight that good fight. New Japan's trying to fight that good fight. There are companies outside of AAA in Mexico, like CMLL. Puerto Rico still has a territory out there that's strong, and they have not reached out to the clones, but there's other opportunities. IWA is out there if you don't want to do a WWC kind of thing. And there's an alternative to everything, which is my point. Even in the UK, right? Like WWE had a working relationship with ICW, but they didn't really have a relationship with Progress. They worked somewhat, but not fully. It wasn't really there yet. Rev Pro, they have other options in different places. There's places in Germany that are doing really well. Obviously, the China scene is still kind of developing. It's not. They have athletes there, and they're doing cool shit, but it's not as organized or as strong as, say, like the Japanese market. So there are other options. There was a quote that I saw the other day that I wanted to bring up here on the show, and I'll bring it up now since we're getting to the end of this. But they said that if all you watch is WWE, then you're a WWE fan. You're not really a pro wrestling fan, because a pro wrestling fan would watch, all of it, or for the most part would mix it up and do different things. I disagree with that. I don't think you need to be up on all of the wrestling to be a wrestling fan. Because as I've said before, not all wrestling is good wrestling. Just like when they say, support your local indie. I only support my local indie if it's an indie worth supporting. I don't just support any local indie. Some of these people are really fucking stupid and don't know what they're doing, and they're wasting their time and they're disrespecting the business. Some of them just are. And I know the boys aren't going to say it because they're looking for a payday, but I don't need the money. I'll go ahead and I'll tell you the truth. There's a lot of people in the independent scene that don't know what they're doing. And they're using and abusing people every single day. So it's not really a situation that's worth, busting your head over, but a lot of concern from people about AAA's purchase. Oh my God, this is going to change everything, and it's just going to they're going to include their stuff, and the jury's still out, right? They may tell you right now, no, we're going to leave it the way that it is. We're going to let them rock. We're going to be behind the scenes, making moves. They could be full of shit. June 7th could be the beginning of a full-on hostile takeover, and they just tell the Pena family and everybody else to go fuck themselves. It's our company now. And at best, maybe they get them to sell the remaining portion of their stock. Because remember, they're only 51% owner of the shares. There's 49 other percent out there, which is not majority, but it's still a good fucking chunk. There's only 2% really separating the two worlds. So, AAA has. I'm sure they're excited as fuck to be able to have an opportunity to get the promotional rub that they're going to get from doing this event with WWE. But for the most part, I think the success really lies with AAA going back to its roots and just relying on itself. I know that the money is great. They're going to be able to pay a lot of talent, which is another issue I forgot to bring up. The talent. Because a lot of people, oh my God, they signed Alberto El Patron or whatever back. They didn't sign him back. It's a crossover contract. He's the champion. Now, there's an ideology that he won't be champion for long. I mean, just because he's champion doesn't mean they have to have him on June 7th, but it would be weird to not have their champion at the show on June 7th. So they're probably either going to have him drop the belt or, just have him live out that suspension because he's still suspended from the fan thing. Or at least I think he is. They did say 6 months. So we'll see if they stick to it. But as under that umbrella, he's still there. He should still technically be suspended. I don't think they need to write him in to June 7th. But with his history and his past, this is the kind of shit we're going to be running into. WWE is going to have to vet who these people really fucking are. We don't want any Invader number 2 situations. We don't want people who we don't know coming into our locker rooms all of a sudden and becoming a real issue. So we'll have to see. All of it's still tentative. The only reason I brought it up this week is because more information came out that made it worthy enough to be talking about now. But we're not really going to have a clue as to what this is going to look like until June 7th. I have a pitch to end this whole segment as far as AAA goes. One of the ambassadors for AAA moving forward will be Rey Mysterio, an original member of the Worlds Collide pay-per-view, and he used to be on the AAA roster full-time way back when. If we absolutely have to drop the belt off or get the belt off of El Patron, I'm not entirely opposed. Or opposed. I don't know what I just said. I think it's imposed. Opposed to him dropping it to Rey. I mean, what a tip of the cap. What a way to get the people behind this merger than to give them their legend back. And look, Rey Mysterio, who, by the way, was at the time was a cruiserweight. He was a lightweight. He was not anywhere near the main event when he was a AAA star originally. And all these years later, the maturity, the resume, the experience, former world's heavyweight champion in the biggest company in the world, it ain't gonna hurt nobody's feelings to put the AAA heavyweight title on Rey Mysterio. And I don't even think you give him a long run, to be honest with you. But just for now, during that transition, I think he'd be a beacon of light. I think he'd be something where both America and Mexico can get together and go, yeah, that would be pretty cool to see him with the world championship, a championship that's eluded him for a long, 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 long time, and he can still wrestle that style to a degree, despite having no knees. He's still at half speed. He's still Rey Mysterio. He's still that guy. He's still him. And I think that I just my 2 cents, just throwing that out there. They do have other options. You can send Penta back to do that. There's other options to dropping the belt. I think the worst thing they could do right now is drop it to a person who's not really that high on the popularity scale. Again, just for the timing of it, because we have this new company, this new venture, and it's just cool to get as many eyeballs on it as possible. So